Hello. Hello, viewers. Hi, Courtney.
Hi, Marley.
Happy book release week. Or
Thank you.
week, right? This week.
Yeah, this
Tuesday.
week.
Ah, gorgeous. Well, for those of you watching, you probably already know that we have Courtney Marie Andrews here, a friend, a collaborator of mine, Marley Grace. Courtney, do you want to tell the people how we met?
Yeah. So I made a music video in my favorite town, Bisbee, Arizona, and I wanted to dance in the video. And somebody said, "Have you heard of Marley Grace?" And
You were like, no.
next thing you know,
Get her here.
and then I watched all of Marley's dancing, and I was so impressed. And all next thing you know, we're in a 2-hour Uber ride to Bisbee, Arizona, and dancing.
Our Uber ride. That was so fun. So yeah, if anybody wants to watch me and Courtney art together, you can Google "It Must Be Someone Else's Fault" YouTube and watch us.
You can.
All right, pal. Well, I'm so excited to celebrate this book. Many of you watching have already gotten it. I'm going to remind you now and later. There is a link in the chat to purchase a signed copy of Old Monarch poems. How do you want to start, pal? You want to maybe get us, kind of ground us in a poem and read to us?
Yeah.
And then we'll kind of begin, or do you want to say anything?
Perfect. I think I'll start with one we discussed earlier regarding nostalgia.
Perfect.
This is the first poem of the second section of the book, Longing in Flight. Regarding nostalgia. Last night, I made my bed in yesterday, slept in the languid summer of youth, us sticking like two sweet buns between sheets, the hum of the hypnotic ceiling fan, unable to break love's spell then and now. Yesterday is safe to visit, knowing the outcome, changing and twisting minor details, nostalgic craftsmanship, reinstalling my past to fit my uncertain future and abundant denial. I only choose to see the rose-colored before, dances under fairy lights, mothers with advice, smells like evergreen and petunia, kisses that only lead to gardens of more mystery, dogs we thought would live forever. Today is too painful to remain in, a blur of suitcase cobwebs in messy closets. So I lay in yesterday and I make it sweet. And when I wake up tomorrow, this will be a yesterday too.
You know, something that like feels sort of thematic throughout the book to me is sort of this like how it's interesting that it says gardens of more mystery, but it's sort of like this, how do we live in the mystery, right? You talk a lot about sort of your own history, which, you know, also like in generations, which also like appears in your songwriting, and how you take care of yourself and the work to take care of yourself. And it also really, to me, paints this like unapologetic messiness, which feels really cool, because like the way you physically present and the way your songs sound are, like, to me at least, are like kind of sharp and like put together, but then the lyrics or the words in the poem are kind of like, actually I'm like future tripping and in this messy situation, which feels really approachable to me. But I'd love to hear maybe actually let's even just start with like more of like how the book came about before we jump into like this specific poem. I'd love to hear you talk about and I know this was a question from an audience member too, of like, when did you start writing poetry? When did the idea for the book come about? Like, why a book and not turn these words into a song? Like, I'd love for you to just riff for us a little bit on like how this book came to be and how poetry fits into your practice.
Yeah, well, when I was a child, I was a poet and I was a singer. And I didn't really know that the two could kind of
Mm.
loosely form into one thing and make a songwriter until like my teen years. But I continued to write poetry through my teenage years, and I was actually published in a couple publications in Arizona, like growing up when I was like a teenager. And I did it for a while, and then I kind of stopped. And then I was literally in a butterfly garden in Arizona when I was having this like really pivotal life transition where a lot of things were changing. I felt kind of like the caterpillar at that time. And I felt like I needed to shed and become the person that you're always becoming. Everything is always a process. And I think I'm really intrigued by that. So I watched this mini doc in this butterfly garden. So cheesy. It was like, I don't even think those butterflies should be there, but I was in this butterfly garden and watched this mini doc on monarchs and realized how many miles that they travel just to give birth. They travel like 3,000 miles or something, and just to give birth, and their whole life is a process. And I thought that that was such a beautiful idea. And I think that that constant transitioning I started becoming really intrigued by. And that's when I wrote Old Monarch, the poem, the namesake of the book. And I think that I, as far as why they didn't turn into songs, I just feel like there's like this philosophical element in poetry, this mystery in poetry, this play on words and language that I've always been so intrigued by, that I really felt like could only be executed through poetry. And I've always been such a big poetry fan throughout my life. So I think that's kind of why. So I just picked it right up.
Picked it right up. It's funny. I mean, I feel similarly having a writing practice and a dance practice, that while I like went on to, study and go to school for dance, writing was what I was doing like as a child. Like as a child, as a small child, I was like, I'm a writer. And there was no question. There was no like, I love that sort of around like pre 10 years old, when you're just like, this is who I am. And you're not like worried about if people believe you or not. You're like, I'm a writer and I'm 9, and it's really it that's what I am. And I'm curious, so much of you have this practice of like, I make songs, I put albums out, what like this album cycle feels like. Did any sort of like imposter syndrome or like new kid on the block or like nervousness come about with being like, okay, well, I'm gonna like put a book out now? Or did you feel so like connected to sort of that child poet part of you?
That's a great question. I think when I just started writing poems, not thinking I was going to put a collection together,
Mm.
it felt actually very free because I was like, there's no pressure. This isn't my main thing. I'm just doing this because I love to do it. And this is another outlet of my artist being. And I think it's always when you start to like put a bow on things that the imposter syndrome comes in. And I think when I started to put the book together and started feeling that pressure of putting a bow on it, that's when I was like, am I a poet? You know, and then you start to have conversations with yourself and you're like, wait, you were a poet as a child. Like as a 6-year old, you were writing poems.
Mhm.
And it the freedom in the art is what makes art great, not the like suffocating
Mm.
anxiety that you sometimes feel. And so, yeah, I definitely had some of that as well. But I tried to just kind of work through it, you know, push through
Yeah,
it.
I'm seeing I'm just going to kind of integrate some of our beautiful, thanks to everyone who's watching who sent in a question. These are really good. And one that I'm just always love hearing from artists about like their creative process, and one person says, do you write every day, and what most inspires you day to day? And I am so curious, both with songwriting and poetry, like it's kind of that like what comes first? Like, do you just start writing songs and then you start to be like, oh, there's like enough here to make an album? Or are you like, it's album writing time? Or is it like, when does that transition from like, oh, I've got a couple poems to I'm gonna make a poetry book? Those are a lot of different questions. Maybe we'll start with, do you write every day? And we can go from there.
I try to. I've kind of chalked my creative process down to I'm a chunk writer and I write in chunks. So there'll be 1 month where I will write every day. And it's generally when I'm not in my own home space and I'm in a space where it's creative chunk time. And those periods are lovely and wonderful, but they're chunks. And I have to fully be embraced in those periods. And in those periods, I am writing every day. I always am writing like little things here and there, but as far as like, my process, it's always kind of these like chunks of time that I'm very productive, and then chunks where I'm living life.
Mm, couldn't relate more. I've never heard that. I'm a chunk writer. I'm like fully a chunk writer. I feel like that's kind of leads me to one of my next questions too about, you know, I feel like sometimes there's a pressure to be a certain way as a writer, to be like, we write every day or we wake up at 6 a.m. and write. And it's like, no, I don't. So I'm curious if there's ever, and this kind of reminds me of just poems throughout this book, but this like journey of accepting yourself. And I'd
Mm.
love to hear about how even writing the poems of this book were teaching you that self-acceptance, and sort of how do you like yourself in the world? Like how are you like, yes, I like Courtney today, exactly the way she is, and how does your creative practice sort of inform that?
Mm. I think writing is a way to learn how to like yourself, or at least to better understand yourself, to be nicer to yourself. But I feel like I do feel like these healing techniques and these ways of accepting ourselves isn't always linear. Like, you have moments where you're going to kind of go back a little and have to relearn. And I think that's why we write poems and songs, to like relearn those lessons over and over again.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I feel like, you know, there are chunks of time where I feel so in my body and so accepting of myself. And I feel like sometimes when I am not in that space, it's actually fuel to get there again.
I hope everybody's taking notes here. Taking notes here. Can I ask you about a specific part of regarding nostalgia, or is it not like sexy to talk about what poems mean? I don't know.
You can, of course.
I can ask you. Okay.
Nothing's off limits. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I'm really that last section of like, today is too painful to remain in, and this sort of like I think you use the word, oh maybe you don't. Well, I'm thinking about like, maybe it's somewhere else, but like liminal space, this kind of like in betweenness of like, I'm technically in today, but today is really painful. Um, yeah, I would just love for you to talk to us about, that again, this sort of like is woven throughout the book a little bit, this like pain of the past and what is to come and becoming. I made a note, I can't wait to watch the Monarch documentary. I love the like you have to travel 300 miles to give birth. So yeah, if you don't mind, I'd love for you to just kind of maybe break down this poem. Like, what's the story behind this poem? What does it look like for you to sort of both be in the day, honor the past, look forward to tomorrow? I feel like that's such a practice of like being present, but also how we're like, presence is actually really painful sometimes and it's too painful to be in it. So talk to us a bit about this poem.
So it's kind of funny you bring this up because I was just visiting my aunt and uncle, and my uncle has this phrase. It's these are the good old days, the ones you're living in now. And I love that phrase, and it's sort of what I hearken to in this poem. And at the end, I say, this will be a yesterday too. This will be a moment, like even sometimes when I look back on really painful periods in my life, I like almost I reminisce about them. Like they feel beautiful in this, like even if they're horribly sad and tragic. I feel reminiscent and rose-colored glasses, and I almost want to feel it again in this weird, twisted way. And I think that when I talk about this poem, it's like a reminder to myself and hopefully to other people that these are all yesterdays. These are the good old days. These are the days that you'll remember. And everything, everything must pass. And I think that's this, age old kind of proverb, like it's all going to pass. And it's, even if it's horribly tragic or the best day of your life, it's all going to be a memory. So you might as well enjoy it now,
Are you a journaler? Like, do you have a journaling practice that's separate from songwriting or poetry as like a to process or to like brain dump? Is that part of your
Not
world?
really. I have again like moments of chunk journaling where I'll journal for like a week and then I won't journal for like 3 months.
I really think you need to trademark chunk writing. And that's like a whole online retreat that you lead as chunk writing, is like helping people accept that they might just be chunk writers.
I think it's important. The reason I've realized that I like to chunk write, TM, copyright, is because you have to live to like write your experiences.
Yeah.
And if you're not living, then there's nothing to write about. You're just like in your own mess, in your own unapologetic mess. Just
I feel like that relates also to like I find that in romantic partnership, like currently being away from my home where my partner is right now, just that how like excited I am to like tell her things. Whereas like when we're just around each other constantly, there's like not much material to work with because we're both just experiencing the same. It's like, hey, did you also see the bird on the branch? Like, um, so yeah, I love that. All right, let's see. Do you wanna how you feeling? You wanna read another
yeah,
poem to us? You're
yeah.
you're a great poem reader.
Oh, thank you. I took advice from the great Judy Blume. She did this
All right,
interview.
right? She just or wait,
She,
was that
she didn't, I don't know if she has poetry, but she read a poem on the Brene Brown maybe it wasn't Brene Brown. No, it was Cheryl Stray did this wonderful podcast where she like interviewed great authors. And she read a poem on there very coldly. And I loved it.
I
It's
love
like, um, let's see.
Judy Blume.
Judy Blume reading a poem on Cheryl Stray's podcast. Highly recommend. The what should I read? Let's see. Should I do the houses we build?
That sounds great.
Okay. The houses we build. I am here to tell you that I have accepted good things. I remember being a cynic once, denying myself the sip of holy wine while the birds were singing in their nests. I waited for the world to end. Mindlessly, I accepted the dances, the roses, pink moons, and the sacred now. We can so easily turn every joyous thing into some perilous warning sign. Our pasts are cruel carpenters, hammering away, building walls around our hearts until every corner is cluttered with cobwebs and childhood trauma. I am here to tell you, I grabbed the broom, the rusted old shovel, and did the work. I no longer wait for lovers to leave or for the earth to rattle beneath me. I am here to tell you what a relief it is.
This might be my favorite poem in the book, TBH.
Ah.
So far, I can't say I've read every single one, but okay, here's what this makes me want to talk about. It reminds me a little, when I read this, it reminds me of like Pema Chodron talks a lot about like groundlessness, how it's not about like being grounded and that nothing can like shake you because you're so grounded. It's like accepting that it's actually totally groundless. So you might like you should actually be somewhat prepared. And so I love that like I no longer wait for the earth or for lovers to leave or for the earth to rattle beneath me. Like to me, that is so much about like, you don't say the earth doesn't rattle beneath me anymore, but you're not like, you're not braced. You're not like waiting for it. Um, yeah, I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that. And then that's a relief. Like it's a relief not to be waiting for these things to happen to you and to just sort of be in it. Um, yeah, do you want to talk about that at all? That feeling of relief that it sounds like you've accessed?
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting you say that because it's called The Houses We Build too. And I think it's knowing that your house, whatever that house is, metaphorically speaking, could burn down tomorrow, and that sounds horrible. And you could spend your whole life waiting for that moment to happen and not live at all. Or you can just sit in your house, enjoy a good cup of wine, glass of wine with your friend, or, whatever moment is that you have, and continue on. But if you're constantly worried, I think it's an anxiety poem. It's like it's a relief not to expect these things to happen, and maybe knowing that it could, but not pushing that away either, but not sitting in it is what the relief is.
Mm. The other thing that I loved so much about this one too is I grabbed the broom, the rusted old shovel. I love that the tools are not in perfect condition. Like they don't, in order to do the work, you didn't have to drive to Ace Hardware to get the newest shovel. It's like you pick up, like the tools are actually probably like in the house already. Which I think is so just part of like capitalism and wellness culture is like we got to get the next best thing to fix what's in here.
I love
Yeah,
that.
I'd love to hear about what that work has been for you. What did you what did you work on with the broom and the rusted?
Well, I think like I've probably just like, everybody else probably struggle with my fair share of anxiety and kind of building up what tomorrow is going to be in my brain a lot. And I think, through meditating and through acceptance and letting go and all these big themes that we're all taught to work on all the time, I've can get to these places where, and I retract a lot, I go back into anxious brain a lot, but I know that at the end of the day, all is well and all will be well, which is something my wonderful therapist actually said to me recently. All is well and all will be well. And I think that when you get back to that place, it feels like a relief. It also feels like a relief knowing that whether or not it's going to work out the way you wanted it to, even if the worst possible thing happens, that there's going to be some lesson in it. And I think knowing that there's going to be some lesson in it is what the work is for me. And I relearn that work all the time. I always, if you have anxiety from the time you're born, you're going to have it in moments of your life. And accepting that too is something that's, remarkable.
Yeah, I relate. It's so interesting. It's like the discomfort is never really from the relearning itself. It's from the resistance that I have to relearn it. Like when I just accept and keep it light and I'm like, LOL, guess we're doing this one again. Guess we're doing this one more time. We're gonna do this again. Okay. It's like I can just be like, here we go. Instead of being like, I'm an idiot. I can't believe this. I can't believe I have to learn this again. I should have mastered it the first time. What someone told me recently a good acronym for shame, which I'm going to mess up now, but it's like should have already mastered everything. Like when I really am in shame, it's because I think I should have already known how to do the thing. So
that's so perfect. The resistance to the relearning, that's you hit the nail on the head there. That's it. The shame that we put on ourselves to relearn these things when we're not robots, we're humans. So
here's a great audience question, which is something I was thinking of also, which is I'd love to hear a bit about your creative process. What are some rituals, routines, and tools that you lean on consistently? We know that maybe that you lean on them in chunks. I can imagine that the rhythm of your life has changed so much without touring. How do you adapt to life on/off the road?
Well, walking is my top tier way to create. Marley, you and I parallels.
Top tier walking chunk writers. Get ready for our upcoming online retreat.
We should do a retreat together.
I'm taking notes. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I am a huge walker. And I'm actually a retreat person, hence the chunks. I like the chunks because I'm a retreat person. And my ideal sort of concoction for a day of creativity is I wake up somewhere where there's a lot of places to walk, either trails or a small town or wherever. And I walk for like 2 hours and I just think. I don't listen to music. I don't do anything. I just aimlessly walk for hours. And then generally by the end of it, I have a poem or a song or, whatever that is. But yeah, walking is crucial for me. I need that to create. I also, I like to be away from home. I'm kind of realizing that I'm not a great at home writer. I feel like I'm so hyper focused on certain things that I have a hard time like being at home and writing.
Yeah, I'm literally at a artist residency retreat center right now for the next week because I'm like I have a new book proposal to finish and like outline to make, and when I'm at home I'm just like I think it is really helpful to me to get clear, to be like, okay, at home I can sew, I can teach online, I can read books. Like I'm starting to get really clear on what I can and can't do in certain places, and to be like, it's really hard for me to write at home. It just doesn't really happen.
Same. And it's so important you get clear too. And I'm also in that process of getting clear because then you just know, and it makes it so much easier to like navigate and not shame yourself for not working, Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm just beating myself up for not writing more at home when it's hard for me to write at home. This is another audience question. What advice would you give to a young aspiring poet?
Wow. What advice would I get? I think just write. I mean, that's the classic thing, the classic advice I say, but just write and don't be too hard on yourself. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a Mary Oliver poem right away or whatever. Just write, as much as you can, as much as you feel inspired to. Don't shame yourself out of writing. I think, it's such a basic advice, but just writing is kind of the read a lot of poetry too. Read form, read, that always helps too, kind of understanding what you like. Read a lot of poetry, be honest with yourself about what you gravitate towards, and try and see how that poem works and execute it in that way in your own style and see if it works for you.
Mm-hmm. Many people, many of your readers have asked, this is a great segue, who are your favorite poets? Who are you reading? What are some of your favorite poems? Maybe you could give us a little homework and we could get to reading.
Yes. I love, obviously, as everybody does, Mary Oliver. Devotions that should be your like poetry Bible. Huge Jack Gilbert fan. And highly recommend. Actually, Jack Gilbert poem Flying Not Failing was one of the biggest inspirations actually for my last album, Old Flowers. It kind of just, it basically, it states that the end of love is triumphant, not a failure. Like Western culture will have you believe. It's like, you loved in the first place, so that's triumphant. And it's just it's a beautiful poem. And it's sort of it's how I view relationships, or try to view them. And I've read a lot of Barbara Rass. There's this poem called Washing the Elephants that's insanely beautiful. And Louise Gluck. Yeah, there's so many to discover too. The world of poetry is so immense. So
love it. I just got this book by Adrienne Rich, The Dream of a Common Language. These are her poems from 1974 to 1977. Brought it.
Ooh.
To do a little reading.
Adrienne Rich. I've heard of this, but I have not read it.
Can't wait to dive in. Can't wait to
Anne Sexton too. Anne Sexton's a good one. Yes.
I love some Nikki Giovanni and Audre Lorde. Jacqueline Suskin, that's my host right now, a contemporary poet.
Nice.
What else do I like? Shira Ehrlichman is a poet out of Brooklyn. A current poet. A current poet. I don't know what you would say. Contemporary. Modern poet. I definitely don't read, out of everything that I consume, whether it's TV, movies, documentaries, songs, podcasts, poems are low on the tier for me, TBH. I don't really seek out reading a lot of poetry. And I was grateful for the invitation to do this today because I was about to visit Jacqueline where I'm at her retreat center, and she's a poet. And then I believe it's National Poetry Month. Maybe that's why I'm thinking about
it is National Poetry Month.
Poems in my brain. Okay, moving on. Okay, I have a question. Can we talk about what we were talking about before we went live? It rhymes with Grammys.
The Grammys.
As some of the viewers may know, our dear Courtney was nominated for a Grammy for Best Americana album.
Yes, that's the one.
First of all, I'm so proud of you, pal. That's amazing. It's absolutely beautiful. Where do I even begin to ask the questions? I feel like what we were talking about is sort of like I asked, when that happened, when things like that happen, right? I mean, as a musician, it might not be a goal, but it's kind of the fanciest thing. Really. I mean, a high pitchfork score, maybe a bunch of stars in Rolling Stone and a Grammy nomination. You know, I'm sure there's other country music awards. I don't know. There's other things, but like it's a high one.
Mm-hmm.
And when it happens, it's like we look at, you're still just the same old guy in your bed sheets wondering about yesterday. It's like, you know, it doesn't heal us. I love to really boil down the poem to its essence. I don't know who picked me to interview you. But you know what I mean? It's like we have, you know, but like we have the poetry book, we have the Grammy nomination, and then we have the real us that's just piddling around doing our best. And so just walk us through what's the experience been like as someone who, I believe you were like have been writing music since you were like a kid, or like, you know, busking and traveling since you were very young. And so now, what are you, 30?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Good one.
Thanks. Do my math. You know, now at 30 years old, you know, what did it, walk us through, what did it feel like to be like, whoa, I just got nominated for this huge thing? Like how did that influence your practice, or how did you have to be like, that can't influence my practice? Like how's it feel to be Grammy nominated, hon? How does it feel? How does it feel fun? And how does it feel like you have to remain yourself? Because that's just,
I think it's both. I think when one, I tried to celebrate in the moment because, one, I didn't know that I was going to be nominated. I actually thought I just really did not expect it at all, because we didn't try, like we didn't hire like a Grammy publicist or anything or any of that, or I don't even know.
You can hire a Grammy publicist.
I think so. I don't know how I don't know how it all works. I just did not expect it.
Album, you just put your songs in the world.
I just put my songs in the world, got a few texts in the morning saying congratulations, and was like, oh, I was nominated. I tried to ritually celebrate those kinds of moments, like take a moment to like really think about, you know, when I was busking in the New York subway station to get a Greyhound bus ticket back home. Like I tried to think about those moments that led me to that moment, and it's really beautiful. It also is kind of a little wah moment where it's like it happens and you're like, well, I'm still Courtney. I'm still the person in the bed in my bed sheets, you know, thinking about yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, quite literally. And also feeling centered in that too. Like great art does not come from an ego mind frame. And I think it's really important to kind of not let either the accolades or the sort of criticisms inform your art as much as you can. It feels really great to be honored after being on the road for 15 years. And I'm like so grateful, but I also know at the end of the day, it's about the art that I'm creating, you know, too. So it's both. It's like, you know, trying to teeter that line of both.
That's beautiful. I like to call that being right-sized. That's
right-sized.
Like 12-step rooms. But yeah, it's like, you know, how can I be both proud of myself and be like, yeah, I've worked my actual ass off and deserve this thing and it feels really good. And yeah, you got to just keep making art and feeding yourself and drinking water and going through life. So.
Yeah.
This is sort of still in the same topic, but one of the audience questions, which makes me think a little bit about like that line of seeking validation and validation that feels really nourishing. And they say, how did you feel once people started taking notice of your writing?
I feel the most fulfilled and nourished when somebody feels less lonely. it's not so much about, oh wow, you're a great writer. Like obviously those comments are nice and they keep you going and stuff, but like it's more the comments and the noticing is so much more nourishing when it's a connection, when it's you connected to somebody. And that's how I've always felt about songs too. When I was back in my busking days, my friends and I used to have this thing where if we made somebody in the audience cry, we knew we had a good show. The $20 for gas was awesome, but like the did somebody in the audience cry, we did our jobs. And I feel like that's, it doesn't have to be so visceral
Right.
with poetry, but with anything now, but it I think the connection is kind of why I started. The belonging, the connection, the feeling less lonely, the healing. I mean, I wanted to heal kids on the playground. Like that's what I wanted. And I think that kind of flows into my writing. So those things feel very nourishing. All the other stuff, it floats around. It can feel good, it can feel bad, it can feel whatever, but it just just doesn't matter as much.
This is a mix of an audience question and my question, which also you kind of just answered, but what is your process when deciding what poems to include in the book? And then my kind of add on to that is like when you're deciding what poems, like what questions are you asking yourself? Like, I hope this makes someone feel connected or less lonely. So yeah, as the audience says, what is your process when deciding what poems to include?
I think that's just a gut intuition thing. I think you just know. I mean, I know that's such a vague statement, but at least for me in writing, when I go really deep into these chunk TM copyright periods, I just really feel like a gut feeling of I know this will be part of the collection. I know that's kind of a vague question and hope doesn't fall short, but it's just like an intuition.
I think that's great. I mean, I think it can be really tricky with any piece of art that is like a collection of many things, chapters, songs, poems, to be like just to be asking too many questions instead of just being like, is this right or is this not right, and just keep it simple. What inspired this book cover?
So this is a designer who goes by Real Fun Wow. His real name is Darren Thomas McGee, but you can find his stuff under Real Fun Wow. He's this wonderful designer out of Ojai. And I'd found his stuff online and I just saw this image and immediately knew it was the cover. And I just love that the women are integrated into the hills, and there's a moon, which I am constantly discussing and feel very connected to.
I never saw women before.
Huh? You never saw the women?
No. I love that. I love that it's so secret, but probably really obvious to other people, but I'm like
yeah, the women, I just love that it's they're symbiotic. I feel like that's kind of how I felt when I was writing the poems. I felt symbiotic with the nature around me. Even if I was talking about a bar room, I just kind of, like it's kind of that I've been saying this a lot this week, but just like it's the forest, not the tree. And I feel like that's what the cover feels like to me.
I love that. Yeah, it's a beautiful congratulations on just such a beautiful object. As someone who writes books, makes books, loves books, I was so, both me and Jacqueline were looking at it earlier and we were just like, oh my God. It's such a nice book. So congrats to you and Andrews Make Me All Publishing for putting out such an amazing book. let me see. Let's see. What else? I'm gonna look at these other questions. Ooh, this is kind of a funny one that I'm like asking myself. I'm like, I have no idea. But they said, if you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you be doing?
I love that question. That's a
I
great
know.
question.
I'm like, oh my God, I have to really think about it.
That's actually a great question because I I had like one other event the other night and I kind of realized it as I was speaking it, but I when I was in high school, I really wanted to be a philosopher. I wanted to go to college to be a philosopher and I just wanted to spend 10 years of my life in college being a philosopher. And I so maybe I kind of realized though, like living day to day and in is its own philosophy. And it's just like this being a philosopher just requires you to ask a lot of questions, which I feel like I do a lot in my poems and in my songs. So maybe I am already doing that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'd probably do something like that. I'd be like a, a plant biologist in the Amazon rainforest or something. I don't know.
Wow.
I always thought it'd be cool to like, or an anthropologist,
Mm,
anything like regarding like stories or excavating mysteries,
yeah.
which all kind of ties back into philosophy and poems and songs. So
Yeah.
I am what I am right now. But that's a great question. And I like to think about it.
Yeah. You want to know what mine is?
What?
It's a little like I both don't want to get to, it's hard to explain without first being like, I want to respect anyone who's listening, but also if you're not familiar with my politics, I don't love cops, but would I be one? Yes, I would be Olivia Benson, excuse me, Captain Olivia Benson, played by Mariska Hargitay on Law and Order SVU. I would be the detective. I would be a detective in law enforcement.
That is not what I was expecting you to say. Wow, I
first
love that.
My first thought was like, maybe I would like learn to bake and like own a bakery in like a seaside town in Maine or something. There's like that version. And then the version that is not rooted in reality is like I'm a detective. I am a detective and I solve murders and mysteries.
You would be a great detective.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And then there's kind of like I have the other answer, which is more like a future goal, which is that I do plan to like own an old motel on Lake Michigan that I run as an artist residency.
Um, well,
That's
that
more,
one has to happen.
yeah, that's just more part of the business plan
Yeah.
for 10 years. But yeah, active. I never thought I'd say that publicly. Is this being recorded? Let's delete that.
A detective's cool though. That's a different sector of cop. That's like
Yeah, I mean, it is a different. Yes and no, but yes, it is a
yeah.
different sector. Whew, all right, let's see. Who is your favorite artist that you have gotten to sing with?
Oh. Whew. Um, John Prine.
I know. I already know. I was gonna say it for you.
I mean,
Gorgeous.
yeah, that's like top tier. I also got to sing with Mavis Staples and Dolly Parton. So I mean, they're all three.
I just looked to see if there was any. I was like, there's not, so I'm not going to pretend to drink it after the dollar.
I felt a little like, as I was saying, like, wow, okay, Courtney, tone it down a little.
Yeah, I do always really love a humble brag.
Yeah, that was totally,
That
yeah.
was just facts.
Yeah.
Those were just
Oh, yeah, and just these two people.
yeah. Oh, John Prime, but also like maybe next question.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Did you listen to Dolly Parton's America? The
I
podcast.
did, and I loved it.
Me too.
I loved it.
Love Dolly. I've been in a. Oh my god. Okay. This we're at that part in an interview where it's been 50 minutes, so now we're just on a FaceTime call, but people are watching. You know how it like shifts into being like listen to this fun thing, but this is relevant. Okay. Jackie, my partner, and I recently watched Coal Miner's Daughter. I'm assuming you've seen it.
A long time ago. That's the
I recommend it. It's Sissy Spacek playing Loretta Lynn.
Yes, I have seen that.
Sings. She sings the whole time. Sissy does. Anyways, we went into a hole of watching like live Loretta Lynn videos, and there is this video of Loretta and Dolly, and it is the most, like, Loretta is just so poised the whole time, and Dolly is like screaming in between every song, and it's such a beautiful example of both of their personalities working so well together. Like, Dolly is just having the time of her life, while Loretta is like, I'm gonna sing my next song now.
Yeah. She's just like very serious. Yeah. I love that. I have to watch that.
I'll find it.
Watching Dolly and the trio doing the live trio stuff is like playing, like frailing the banjo with her like 2-inch long nails is just so good.
She really, as the podcast talks, like takes, I mean, I love that concept of her being like, no, I'm not a feminist. But then you're like, well, you are technically like, you know, it's like, we know you don't identify that way, but you know, it's so interesting to like, I love that Carl, her husband, we just kind of don't really see about him or hear about him.
It's so mysterious. And I think that is what draws people in too. But we all kind of know too. That's the other part. We like what you're saying, like we know, but we don't know.
You sang with her. There was like a very powerful, there was like a group, right? Am I picturing?
Yes.
Somewhere?
It was the first all-female headlining Newport Folk Fest. And we all sang 9 to 5 with her. Like there's probably like 15 women on stage. It was amazing.
You kind of answered this a little bit earlier, but does songwriting translate to writing poetry? Or they feel
the two feel very different actually in my mind. I kind of relate songs to the heart and poems to the head, though they bleed kind of into each other. I feel like poems can be very heady. Whereas poems, I'm just kind of trying to get to songs can be, poems can be very heady and songs can be very heart oriented. I'm trying to get to the heart of the matter. Although of course, you know, you need both, but yeah, I'd say they lean kind of more those ways.
I love it. Really, the last official question here, which is kind of how I like to end things anyways, / if there's anything else you want to share, I would love to hear it, but it's just sort of like, what has been inspiring you lately, maybe especially in pandemic times? Like, what do you feel like, and maybe give us a little list. Is there like a TV show, a movie, a person, an activity? Like, where is the Courtney Marie Andrews inspiration coming from?
The inspiration is coming from trying to consume very intentional things. So like really good films. Like last year I did an Alfred Hitchcock, you know, thing where I watched every Alfred Hitchcock movie for like a week straight or 2 weeks straight.
Wow.
And just like trying to watch good films, read good books, you know, books that I've been trying to check off the list for a long time and like really pick them up, like Pulitzer Prize winning books and that sort of thing. So yeah, as far as that goes, I've just been trying to be intentional, not just read like any, you know, whatever pharmaceutical book you get from Walgreens, or I like to call them like, you know, pharmacy books. But yeah, just being intentional about what I've been consuming. And then always nature. It's always just such a huge part of my process. And especially in the pandemic, just having this time and also allowing myself to just be an artist in all sense of the word. I think I used to be really precious, like I'm just a musician and I must spend every day being a musician. and I always will be, but also just like being inspired by, if I feel like painting one night, I'm just going to paint. If I feel like writing a poem, I'm going to write a poem. So yeah, just trying to be in tune with me as an artist.
Mhm. I think something that can be helpful for me too, as someone who works in multiple mediums, is sort of in that same clarity you talked about being like, okay, I write in chunks. I know this about myself. It's like I've gotten clear about like, okay, I make money from these few things. These other things I don't rely on as my main source of income. They might make money, but I can approach them in these kind of like different ways. And to know that all of the modalities or mediums I'm working in, even though they look different, I'm like kind of approaching them in the same themes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it comes back to like, we're artists, you know, at the end of the day, we just like to create things, and there doesn't have to be this like boxed in, this is what you are. I think that stifles creativity, you
I
know.
agree.
Um
Um, what's next? I mean, I know this just came out, but what's coming up? What are you excited about? Is there anything you want to tell us about? I know we can get the book at the link. We can get a signed book at the link. Um,
and you should all get Marley's book, Getting to the
oh,
Center, which is
you know,
so good and highly recommend as well. Everybody needs to read it. It is so insightful and so helpful, and yeah, just gonna do a little promo for your book as well.
I appreciate
um, but yeah, I'm going back into, I'm just writing songs. Gonna start recording some music soon, and I'm going on a real tour, hopefully in the fall, like a real live human tour, which don't, I can't even imagine how that'll feel. And so yeah, just getting back in the saddle again.
Yeah. It's probably going to feel amazing. I can't wait to go to concerts. I miss them. I
Yeah.
I miss them. I miss crying. I
Mhm.
love to cry at a concert. I really, it doesn't even have to be a sad song. When the lights go down and the stage lights come up, I cry just every time. I'm like, I love performance. I love concerts. I love performance, and I love to cry. So, all of that combined, I love. Do you have any other book events on your schedule?
I do. Unfortunately, not the best schedule keeper,
Okay.
but I am doing a Barnes and Noble event
Ooh, Barnes and Noble.
sometime soon
Okay, well, we can find you on
on
probably
the
social
website.
media and on the website, CourtneyMarieAndrews.com.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, go there. And yeah, if you like me and think I'm funny, you can go to marleygrace.space is my website. I am taking a social media break till May. I've been off since January, and
Amazing.
for any artists out there, highly recommend. Don't just log out, deactivate. Your account will be there when you log back in months later. Just try it out, see what happens. It has really healed my brain, my art brain, my chunk writing brain, etc. Well, pal, I'm so proud of you. Thanks everybody for watching us. Don't forget to get your book at the link in the description. Courtney, I think you're amazing, and I feel grateful that you gave us this, because I really felt that feeling of like less alone. To be like, it's just so nice to read something and be like, oh, I do that, or like, oh, I feel that. Like, oh, I'm. As soon as I know I'm not the only one who feels a thing, I'm like, okay, okay, I
It's
got this.
it's gonna be okay.
You did your job. You made me cry.
Thank you, Marley. I'm so happy that we did this together. Again, get Marley's book, Old Monarch, is out. Thank you guys.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for live signing.
Thanks, live signing.